Hello and welcome to another round of the Caribbean Motorsport ACC Championship. I'm Chris Reardon. I'll be your commentator for today, and in my ear, and he may pipe up at some points, is Brian Mandeville. We'll see how he gets on and whether he feels like showing his face. Round 3, Paul Ricard, and you may have noticed that it's raining. So not the nicest of conditions to start things off with. We're currently in qualifying. We've got about 5 minutes left. So the driver's hoping to put in some good laps, but it wasn't raining at the start of qualifying, so it's reasonably unlikely that some drivers are going to improve their times, but, you know, anything is possible. Some would have had invalid lap times throughout the start of the session, so further down the order they'll be competing for that. As you can see, quite a few drivers in the pit lane. If you look at the left-hand side, P next to their name does mean they're in the pits. So the others thinking they can still improve, get some time out. And the rain isn't quite pouring, so there might still be a dry line in some areas of the track. So the driver's hoping that they can capitalise on that. But that does mean if they put the tiniest of foot wrong, they might swiftly find a tyre barrier. Or at least in any other circuit they would anyway. Paul Ricard, well known for its wide runoff areas. As you can see, lots of paint, lots of tarmac. So very low risk track this. It'll be interesting to see come race time how everyone gets on. But in the meantime, we are currently watching from the helicam Wilhelm Weyrich, currently sitting P1. So he's clearly perhaps just trying to get some practice in these wet conditions when the race comes round. Or he's just thinking perhaps he can best his time still. So riding on board now, seeing how he gets on. This doesn't look too treacherous yet. There could easily still be a dry line. Track conditions are greasy, so with enough running, dry line would form. Paul Ricard has some nice long sweeping turns. It's good sort of stuff to get to grips with. Enough understeer to deal with. But then, of course, on the exit, you're going to have hideous amounts of oversteer. Stuff you just want to be careful of. Let's see if we can ride on board now. Have a lap internally. See how we get on. So coming up to the first turn. S's left, right. You want to try and hit both apexes as best you can. And then just let the car run over to the left. Track limits are difficult on this circuit. The curbs are nice and flat. They're very tempting to use, but you run over them, you will get flagged by the stewards for track limits. Then into a slightly tighter chicane, right, left again. Try and clatter both curbs if you can. Even in these conditions, they're probably worth taking. And then slow it right down, nice and tight. A couple of tricky corners through these before and after the straight in this section. Again, you can see him just fighting the wheel, just trying to get everything ship shape. Which is ironic because he's driving a Bentley. It's about the size of a boat. But coming down the main straight now, nice and quick, going all the way through the gears, flat out. This would be a good overtaking spot coming into these next two turns come race. Let's see how he manages to navigate these. Couple of spins in practice we noticed through here. Just perhaps a bit late on the brakes, just over-rotating the car going through the corner. See how he gets on. And nicely hits the curb there, uses all the runoff on the exit. Now, in my opinion, the trickiest corner on the circuit. You start wide and have to come in for a very late apex. Look at the amount of lock he's got on all the way through the corner. Just letting it come over to the left, fighting it all the way. Again, another late apex, start wide, come in narrow. And try and use all the track on the exit. Just fighting the oversteer. Then hard on the power again, keeping it tight. Coming up to the last couple of corners now. Just not wanting to go too far across. Coming all the way over to the left before hugging the right apex. But he goes quite wide there, but that might easily be for the grip in these conditions. And then hard on the power to go into the pits because he's bailed. I thought he was going to go to the line there, but alas, no. So now, seeing how Oscar gets on. He is in the early stages of his lap. Again, this might just be practice. The rain is getting heavier, so he might not be looking to set any lap times. Just get to see where the grip is, find out what he's going to do come race time. Is it currently sitting P2? He's going to need all the help he can get if he wants to overhaul Wilhelm into the first turn. Here we go, going down the long back straight again. Lovely coloured car, that. That pink works well on the Bentley. I never thought I would say that, but it does. Lovely Norwegian flag on top as well. So we are running some custom liveries. Of course, ACC does allow you to run custom liveries on top of their default ones, as well as you can make in-game ones. So the car's looking lovely. So, approaching the last 10 seconds, so these will be the last across the line. If there are any improvements to be made, these will be the time to do it. But, as I said, it might be unlikely that they are managing to improve. So there's the checkered flag. Let's see if people just dive into the pits at the end, or whether they cross the line and manage to improve. Here's Ryan Quinn in his Lexus. One of the nicest sounding cars on the grid, I think. Roaring Japanese V8 making its way down. There we go. The session has indeed ended. So we have our running order to start the race. So let's just run through our order. So we've got Wilhelm Weyrich on pole in his Bentley Continental GT3, the number 13 car, quickly followed by Oscar Sandberg, number 14, also in a Bentley Continental. So this might be the fight of the Bentleys up to the first turn. Just see if Jeremy Gonzalez has anything to say about it in his M6 GT3, sitting comfortably in third place. Then we have, and I just do need to check the names here because this is my first time running this live commentary event. Jelani Patterson in fourth place in his Huracan GT3. Then Dominic Oliver currently sitting fifth in his Huracan GT3 as well. And Jamal Badou bringing it up in his V8 Vantage GT3. And then we have, bear with me a second, this is very amateurish, my apologies. Khalil Badou coming up on his Mercedes AMG GT3 in 7th. Then Chris Corbin in his M6 GT3. Then Damien Yearwood in his Bentley Continental GT3, currently number 17th. And then Axel Svensson in his Bentley Continental GT3. And then Ryan Quinn in his Lexus, currently sitting pretty in 11th. And then Omar Badou, 12th in his AMR V8 Vantage. Kevin Manning next in his Audi R8 LMS Evo, the number 1 car. And then we have Javon Codrington, again in an AMR V8 Vantage. And then Simon Capelli in his M6 GT3. Up next, it is Charlie Martin, sitting pretty in her Bentley Continental GT3. Then Rory Hunt. Ryan Hunt, my bad. My apologies, Ryan. You could be Rory if you want for the race. Just let me know. In his Huracan GT3. AJ Jones in 18th in his V8 Vantage GT3. And then finally, last but certainly not least, is Derek Rudder in 19th place in his Porsche GT3. So there we have it. That is the grid. As they are just making their last-minute setup changes. They may not have been expecting the rain to be this heavy come the race. Maybe making the cars that little bit softer, taking some pressure out the tyres. And we'll see what they do going up to the first turn. So, it's an hour-long race. 1 mandatory per tyre change. They don't have to take fuel, so they should have enough fuel to last them the whole race without needing to take any more. No driver changes. This is a single driver event, so we should be sitting pretty all the way, hopefully, throughout the hour, assuming they don't have any accidents into turn 1. Of course, in the driver's briefing, it would have been covered. You can't win it in turn 1, but I dare say, in my experience, some will try. And in the rain, it's just going to be that extra bit dicey. So they have to bear that in mind. They're just going to have to give each other that little bit more room, find the heat in the brakes, find the heat in the tyres, and of course not do anything too drastic on the first couple of laps. Settle down, get into it, and then just hopefully go through the laps, wait for others to make mistakes, make their way up the field, hold pretty if they're in the top 5. Maybe wait till the end of the race, see how the weather gets on, and then just see what happens, really. So the weather forecast is currently saying it's going to stay wet throughout the whole race. In fact, it might even get heavier towards the end of stages of the race. Track temperature currently 17 degrees Celsius. Sorry, 21 degrees Celsius. Air temperature 17 degrees. Minimal wind, so there isn't going to be any heavy crosswinds or anything to fight with. It should all just be in the car. All about grip, all about ability. Making life a tiny bit easier in these conditions, but not wholly easy. So this is where the nerves start to set in. 40 seconds to go. You have to be thinking to yourself, you're planning what you're doing, you're going to think as you're going around on this warm-up lap, how you're going to get heat into tyres, try and find the grip where you can, plan where your overtaking moves are going to be, because all that first lap is going to be very important. You don't want to put the car in the wrong place and find yourself suddenly running off the track, running out wide, or perhaps even running into the back of someone. It's been done. It will be done plenty of times throughout their careers, and maybe even a couple of times in this race, but let's certainly hope not. So, only a couple seconds left before they set off on their warm-up lap. Let's hope they all start and get away without any problems. So here we go. Wilhelm leading the pack away. We follow on board, on the helicam. So trying to weave, get as much heat into the tyres as they can. If they have any sort of brains, they're going to be running wet tyres. They might have a couple of mentalists on the dry. We'll wait and see. But try and get the heat into the brakes. That'll be an important thing coming down into a braking zone at turn 1. And just trying to find the grip. Not too much warming up going on at the front. As we move our way down the back, Jeremy Gonzalez, just seeing what he's doing. It's very shiny livery there, easy to see. And Delaney Patterson as well. It's nice blue and green Hurricane. So it's interesting to note that, of course, all the competitors have various cars, all require different setups within them. Certain cars have different characteristics. Some will handle better in the wet, some will handle better in the dry. So those that have perhaps had a car suited for the dry might find themselves higher up the grid and might just struggle a little bit more lower down that have a car suited for the wet, and they might come up towards the middle and later stages of the race. So this is all to play for. We've not had, at least I believe I'm right in saying, we have not had a wet race, fully wet race thus far in the 2 rounds we've had. So, round 1 was at Nürburgring, round 2 at Kyle Army, and now round 3, of course, at Paul Ricard. So, as the drivers make their way around, as I've said before, just seeing how they fare in the wet, seeing where all the grip is. Down the straight, of course, this might be a bit dicey coming towards the end of the straight. You might just try and cool the tyres down if they start to overheat. If you find in a couple laps time when there's water pushed out the way, the tyres will just start to overheat. So you might find them during the race trying to weave, just find some water to cool everything down, maybe the brakes as well. But once they come to the end of the straight, they'll just want to come back over to the left, hopefully chuck it into the right without too much drama, and then they might find themselves pushing over towards the left, with hopefully not picking up any track limits warnings. So coming to the later stages of the lap, we will see whether they're happy with themselves. They'll start to line up 2 by 2, and then it will be up to Wilhelm to set the pace at the front, wait for the green lights, and then they'll be underway. So, as they line up, able to see, hopefully, all getting in place. We haven't lost anyone. There's been no Valtteri Bottas's. They haven't bottled it on the outlap. Or Max Verstappen, I should say, as well. None of that today. They've all made it round. Hopefully got all the heat they need. Coming around the last turn. This is where the nerves will just leave them. They'll put their foot down and then they'll get on with it. All the way down to turn 1. So, setting the pace. And then let's wait for the green lights.
Green light, green light.
And there they go. So, round 3 of the Caribbean Motorsport ACC Championship is underway. Down to the first turn they go at Paul Ricard. Let's see who comes out on top. Wilhelm has the slight advantage going into turn 1. Gonzalez just sticking his nose in, but Weirick just fends him off. Manages to keep first place going through the S's. He tries to pull away, try and build a gap. Sandberg still in second. Oh, there's a big moment. There's a huge accident, it seems, at the back of the pack. Who's involved? Is that Patterson? Yes, he's gone round in his Hurricane. I believe there are at least 2 more cars that suffered there. Interesting to see exactly what happened. So, yes, we have Derek Rudder as well. He seems to have gained a few places from that. So we've got, let's try and gain a place as all the positions sort themselves out. There seems to be a mid-pack incident. A lot of the mid-pack has fallen down as everyone makes their way through. So let's just see how this sorts itself out. Still a bit of congestion in the middle. They want to sort that themselves out, just going into that fast left-hander before the straight. In the meantime, up with Weirick up towards the head of the pack. Sandberg close in tow. He might just try something round the outside. If he does, Olivier will be there to pounce. He tries to stick it round the outside, but that has left room for Olivier to stick his nose in again. He's trying to hound these 2 drivers, and he's made the move. Bit of contact there, pushing him out wide onto the exit. He's not going to be happy with that, Sandberg, but he might try and get them back on the next corner. But he managed to make it stick. Olivier's probably going to start trying chasing down Weirick as tight as he can, but there's a huge amount of contact there. Sandberg sent himself round. He just tried to stick his nose in, perhaps where it wasn't quite deserved, but all the drivers are hitting him as well. There's 2 cars round. There's a BMW and another Bentley there. That was right on the racing line. You can see how they might have been unsighted coming round there and then just went straight into him. I hope there's no damage for any of those drivers. You will see when they go past the pits for the first time who goes in, who stays out. There you go, coming around the last corner. Let's see who goes into the pits, if any do. But currently I'm not seeing any take the dive. So Patterson is still getting bullied out wide there. He's not had a good start. He is going to be very unhappy in that Lamborghini, as perhaps might some of the other drivers. So that was a very dramatic start, a very dramatic first lap. The rain playing probably quite a vital role in that. Of course, any amount of contact in the rain is going to be amplified. You're going to lose grip a lot more quickly. It's going to be very difficult to save. So Wilhelm scampering away, making the most of the fact that his competitors seem to have just got a bit, got their elbows out a bit too much. Olivier in second, just trying to make his way up. Third place, Boudou. He's capitalised out of that massively in his Mercedes. That could not have been much better for him. Yearwood in 4th, just a little bit behind. The top 3 have made a breakaway. So it'll be interesting to see if they can all keep it together. But then there seems to be another pack of 3. Yearwood, Sandberg and Corbin, hoping to just try and catch them as quickly as they can. Of course, Sandberg had that disastrous spin towards the end of the lap. He'll be trying to make up as much time as possible. See him just fighting with the car, trying a few different lines to Yearwood. Perhaps just knows where the grip is. Has a slightly better exit as well. He's really pushing him here. Right under the tail of that Bentley. Yep, he goes for the outside, trying to find the extra grip. He doesn't want to go too wide, as you can see. Corbin, he's just letting him know he's there. In the BMW. In fact, he might have a run on him here. Trying to fight off Corbin has now become the new aim. Here we go. Starting lap 3. See if there are any lunges to be had. But no. Single file stuff, nice and sensible. These guys seem to have calmed down a bit. They seem to have remembered that it is an hour-long race. It's not a sprint race. It's not a hot lap of a race or anything like that. You do have to make it through. Running a bit. Oh, he's made a little bit of a mistake there. Can Sandberg capitalise? And he has. But the thing is, can Corbin get through as well? There's maybe a slight bit of contact there, just pushing him out wide. A cone goes flying. Yep, Sandberg makes his escape. Corbin and Yearwood have switched round. But that Bentley's not going anywhere. Look at him, he's right under the tail of him again. In fact, he's going to have the run on him. That Bentley is rapid in a straight line. BMW outside might just be able to use a bit more of the track, but he tucks back in behind him. He's still there, he's still there. He's come out again, he's going to give it another go. You see how important the toe being. You come out the toe and you just fall behind in that Bentley. As I said, it has a very large frame. The drag coefficient might just be slightly higher than the Beamer. So it will need the toe to try and get in that bit closer. Now on board, Damien Yearwood. Let's just see, of course, Svensson, of course, he's behind him as well. He's caught up. He might try and get in on the action. He's trying to try the outside line. Maybe stay off those curbs. In fact, that is a great run from Svensson. That slightly wider line on entry. Cut back. In fact, he's going to have the inside for the next corner as well. Bentley's going toe-to-toe. And he's done it. Can he hold it into the final turn? No, Yearwood's fighting back. Forcing Svensson quite wide there. In fact, he's got quite lucky. Svensson, see if he can do anything down into turn 1. This is great racing from the earlier stages. This rain might have just spiced things up. No end. The driver's performing miraculously well. A lot of fighting to be had. It's probably worth just starting to settle down. Let's go through. Let's go check back again on Wilhelm at the front. He is just starting to pull away from Oliver. He's just 10th by 10th, lap by lap. As long as he keeps it together, it won't be too bad. Here is Oliver in his Hurricane, 2.5 seconds behind. Boudou, 4 seconds behind. So the top 3 just starting to spread out a little bit, just finding their rhythm. But there's a big gap down to Sandberg. Again, his mission is going to try to be to catch the top 3 as quickly as possible. He may try and think about an early pit stop, might try and think about the undercut. At this stage, try and gain back some of that time. Chris Corbin in 5th. Quickly followed by Yearwood and Svensson. They are going to be neck and neck going into the end of that straight. See who comes out on top. Now Svensson just finds his way through. So Yearwood had a good start. Now just starting to fall back down the order. You can see the rain has increased. It is a lot wetter than when the race started. Fighting the car through the corner. I think Yearwood has learned from his competitor. He's tried a wider line on entry. Tried to stay off the curbs that time, because the curbs are going to be much more slippery. Here's AJ Jones. He's had a fairly quiet start. It seems he's just made his way through. He's stayed out of trouble. And just trying to catch the pack now. Yeah, Charlie Martin, again, she's had a great start. Going up to 9th. She will be looking to just keep it calm, keep it collected. Just seeing what she can capitalise on. And here's Jeremy Gonzalez. Again, not the best start. He got sent round at the first lap. Yeah, there's some damage there on the front as well. So hopefully it's just cosmetic, but that might be a factor for him being so far back as well. He may not have been able to get on the pace instantly. Here's Omar Boudou in the Aston. Very nice livery, that nice colour from Garage 59. Then we have Delaney Patterson again. Not a good start for him. He too got sent round in that melee at the beginning. Derek Rudder, good start for Derek. He did start at the back, but has made it through to 13. He's going to be looking to try and hang on to that place for as long as he can. Jamal Badou, again, he didn't have the greatest of starts. But Ryan Quinn in the Lexus, not close behind. Sorry, very close behind. Just trying to sort himself out. Keeping a tighter line there than his competitor Jamal. Perhaps he's trying to get the exit for the straight so he can stay in the tow, catch him down there, maybe have a go into the next corner. Next, of course, we got Hunt in his Lamborghini. Again, nice colour. I'm liking the liveries, guys. I'm liking the liveries. Simon, a salmon. Okay, maybe that's the rule breaker. Maybe the salmon is the rule breaker. I'm not a fan of that. But here's Kevin in the Audi. Again, Kevin not having the best of starts. But there we go. So I do believe we have had a dropout looking at that order. Let's just try and figure out who it was. There were 19 cars that started, only 18 currently in the race. I believe. Yeah, I believe Javon Codrington. I believe he has retired from the race. Whether it was due to some damage and all of that melee, or perhaps he had a connection error at the start. Hopefully we'll be able to find out before the race ends. Give you an update on him. But now back at the front. Oliver has managed to catch Vierick slightly. The gap wasn't what it once was. Whether Vierick had a slight issue or Oliver just put his foot down, you can wait and see. So, 11 minutes into the race, everything is calmed down slightly. The field is spread out a bit. This is where the drivers just want to start getting their consistent laps in. They're not going to do anything too drastic. They're not going to try and push the track limits. Just get the consistency down, see what they can do, get in the rhythm. Of course, most will be looking to pit at the halfway point, at the half an hour point. That would be the most logical thing to do. Try and get the best from both tyres. And then this is when in their heads they'll be forming their strategy as well. Do they try and go for a slight undercut and be by 5 minutes or so, do a couple laps on the fresher rubber? Or do they perhaps try and overcut them? Do they think that they've got the pace on those tyres, push it a bit longer, and then have the fresher tyres towards the end of the race where they just perhaps might claw it back, depending what the weather does? So, now just riding along, Damien Yearwood in his Bentley. Mid-pack. Hoping to obviously just try and get as high up the leaderboard as he can. Of course, that goes without saying. In these stages, just trying to gauge pace of everyone else around you. You're trying to see perhaps AJ's catching him slightly, or perhaps Svensson's just pulling away. But it looks to be that he is not letting Svensson get away. They had that ding-dong a couple of laps ago. So perhaps he wants vengeance. Now, up the front again. You can see Vierick and Oliver. Again, the gap has just stabilised. If anything, Olivier, a slight moment there. But that Hurricane is not going to be fun in these conditions. Mid-engined, very lively, all-round top car. But just... to drive that car, I do often think you have to be somewhat suicidal. I've tried it myself, and it's rotatey is the word I'm looking for. The back sometimes thinks it's the front of the car and would rather be that way round. It's a bit annoying when you're driving. So hopefully he's got a good setup in there, but even so, you can see him struggling in the wet conditions. And if anything, he is just slightly catching Vierick down the straight. See the gap, 1.5 seconds between them. And they have managed to gap Purdue slightly. Just trying to... Maybe if they were to get closer, they would work together, use each other's tow. That'll be interesting to see how the race progresses. But here's Sandberg. He is catching Purdue. And he's also bringing Corbin with him. He's not far behind either. So Sandberg will be looking to get back to the front as quickly as he can, where I'm sure he feels he belongs and has been robbed at that start. Very nice coloured Bentley. Now you see, that's how you do pink. You don't do salmon. You don't do a salmon pink. You do that kind of that sort of very bright popping pink is what you want. Take notes. I can't remember who had. I am struggling just briefly to remember who had the salmon BMW. Simon Cabelli. Maybe it's that Italian flair. Maybe I'm missing something. But anyway, Chris Corbin now in his Beamer, making his way through turns 1 and 2. Gets on. And the BMW is, in the ACC world, it is tipped to be a slightly underpowered, under-BOP'd car, balanced performance. It feels, some do feel that it is perhaps forgotten about in many ways. Some in the higher echelons of ACC do try and leave it. They don't want to touch it with a barge pole. They just feel it's a bit underwhelming. But Chris Corbin, sitting in 5th place, is doing well. He was... So let's stick with Chris Corbin for now. We'll try and just ride on board, see how he does. This is a good chance to prove all of those in the ACC world that the BMW M6 is a contender. And those 3 bollards on the outside there, those are the track limits. If you hit them, that will be deemed as track limits. If you stay within them, of course, you're all good. And making the way through. Those aren't on the exit of every corner, just on those high-speed ones where it is deemed acceptable just to run that little bit wide. Different series use different markers on that. You can see them on the exit of that corner as well. Now making his way through to the last couple of corners. So here's the Sandberg just making his way along, was that? Now, I've just noticed on the leaderboard, Jeremy Gonzalez has dropped down to 18th place. Is that due to a pit stop? Perhaps he had damage and just wanted to get the pit stop out the way early. He may have changed tyres already. He may think he can make it to the end on them. Perhaps he had another incident. Perhaps he went round. I'm sure we'll find out later on the road. So, we're just going to take a short break. I'm being told we just have 1 or 2 technical difficulties, which we just need to reset. But we will be right back when we can. And we're back. So, technical difficulties, folks. Nothing too drastic. You know how it is. Sometimes technology just doesn't want to have fun. Here we are with Jeremy Gonzalez. He is at the back of the pack. Now, the car it seems to have been repaired from earlier, so maybe he did. I can't see much damage there, so maybe he did pit and get that repaired and get his pit stop out the way early. Here's a lap down as well, so that does suggest to me a pit stop. Maybe one for Kevin Manning as well. Yes, Ryan as well, just making their way round. I don't think these chaps have pitted yet. Simon Capelli getting friendly with the curbs there. Perhaps he thinks he is one with that coloured car. And Derek Rudder still sitting pretty. He will be very happy with his start, coming from 19th up to 14th. Just hoping to maintain everything he can. Now Jamal Badou in his Aston, giving Ryan Quinn a run for his money. Running on board now. We'll be looking to try and get in the tow going down the straight. I'm just running a bit wide there. He absolutely is feeling the pressure, just maybe struggling with the grip. This will be perfect if Jamal can capitalise on this. It's all about the exit of this next corner. If he can get that right, he'll have the tow, and he might just be able to say something, put his name in the hat within the next couple of corners. So there's the pit window. It is now open. This is the expected time in which you're going to pit. So it'll be interesting to see if any drivers dive into the pits early on. I dare say the leaders will stay out. They'll try and to keep their rhythm, but the ones mid-pack, they may just try something different. So I dare maybe Ryan will be one of these people. Maybe he is willing to switch it up a bit. Maybe catch out Jamal, try and break the toe, get the undercut put away from him. Here's Jelani Patterson, making his way through the last section. Not too far ahead of Ryan Quinn, but just enough he doesn't have to start worrying about him yet. And up the road, Omar Badou in his Aston. I do see that someone is in the pits. Is that Yearwood? I believe it is Yearwood. He's Damien. Here he is in the pits. So he's the first to blink. In fact, he's just on the exit, so he's already done his stop. Or is this pit lane much longer than I envisioned? This pit lane is much longer than I envisioned. That is the answer there. He is making the stop. So it'll be interesting to see where he comes out. Probably towards the back. But here we are on board. Charlie Martin, right under the wing of AJ Jones. In fact, she has, of course, made a place with Damien going into the pits. Not too far in front. Are they coming to lap? I believe. Have to try and lap Jeremy. It is so Jeremy obeying the blue flags, moving out the way, not getting involved. So he's just perhaps going to try and keep with them, stick with the rhythm. They'll eventually go into the pits, of course. Oh, but Derek Rudder has a drive-through penalty for, I believe, speeding in the pit lane. Or track limits. I did not see the notification. One of the two. But either way, a drive-through penalty is not what you want. This is quite a long pit lane here at Paul Ricard. So having to do another one of them is going to be very costly for him, especially as he is up to 12th. Back on board now with Charlie. Seeing how she gets on. Slightly different line to AJ there. Slightly tighter through mid-corner. Perhaps that does set it up for the last corner a bit better. Maybe all about the exit. Just Bentley just lacking a bit in straight line speed, it seems, compared to the Aston. Even with the toe, not too much happening there. But what you must consider, of course, is that Jeremy might be that little bit quicker. Maybe he'll be thinking he can get past them. He's quicker than them. Of course, you are allowed to unlap yourself. There's nothing saying you can't. So if there are any mistakes from either driver, he will happily go through and take that back. See Charlie there, just ran a little bit wide on the curb. That's not what you want going onto this main straight. Jeremy being sensible, he's not going to ruin their race. Here's a back marker. So Charlie unfortunately didn't manage to get the exit she wanted. But now, back up with Dominic Oliver. Making his way through the final part. I think that's the final section of the track. It is indeed. Now, of course, you may have noticed I've not been saying corner names, and that's because they're French. Now, I am English. No, I'm only kidding. They're French, and I don't want to butcher it. as the final corner, Virage Dupont. I may just start using corner names. We'll see how I get on. Coming up to the Est de la Verrière. Again, that might be right, that might be wrong. So I'm just going to probably return to T1, 2, 3 from here on out. Coming up to turn 1 and 2. And of course, I don't want to get Caribsin Motorsport done for races, especially as they have no need. So we'll just brush quickly over that. But here he comes up. Now with Oscar Sandberg in third, so he got past Badou. And the gap has increased to 10 seconds, so he must have done that a fair while ago. In fact, that can't be, can it? Has he made up that much time? Is that Oliveira in front of him, or is that the other Lamborghini of Patterson? Has he made up that much time? He has! How has he done that? That is electric driving from Oscar Sandberg. There was easily a gap of about 15 seconds, but he's taken that down to 2.5. That is a great bit of driving, and of course he's catching up with Virek as well, who's not much further up the road. Maybe he's got lucky with traffic. Perhaps the Oliveira and Virek were held up in traffic and Sandberg managed to dispatch them a bit more easily. But this might just get interesting going towards the halfway stage of the race. In fact, Khalil just running a little wide there. He's going to have to watch that. You pick up 4 warnings is a penalty in ACC. So they will have the notification pop up for them. They will know how many track limits warnings they have, and the 4th one will be a penalty. Here is Chris Corbin following suit, quickly followed by Svensson. So Svensson representing turn 1. Of course, this event is brought to you by Turn 1. They do help the logistics side of things and bringing you this lovely event. And they have their own representatives in this series, both a pro and pro-am team. So Virek and Sandberg representing the pro team, and then Charlie Martin and Axel Svensson representing the pro-am team 1. And then they also have a pro-am team too. Damien Yearwood and Havard Rolofsson, who unfortunately is not here. They also represent Turn 1, as well as a myriad of other teams, which we will get onto shortly. So, speaking of Turn 1, it's worth turning our attention to the ACC leaderboard after round 2. So, out in front, currently, we have Oscar Sandberg on 70 points, representing Turn 1 Pro. The gold driver is also leading the gold championship. Second, Wilhelm Virek, also in the gold. So their teammates, first and second, they are leading the way. Third place, currently, Chris Corbin in his M6 for Team Apex Fever. And then in 4th place, the Turn 1 Pro-Am driver, Axel Svensson, in his Bentley. Jamal Badou in 5th in his V8 Vantage GT3, representing Front Yard Racing. So within that top 5, 2 gold drivers, 3 silver drivers. So it's an interesting split in the championship so far. So in terms of standings, this race currently would mean that Oscar just loses out a little bit to Virek, unless he can keep that pace going and perhaps overhaul Oliveira, or Virek may just drop it entirely and Sandberg might take him. You never know, but let's hope not. So we'll keep checking back on the championship as it unfolds, how this race will affect them, and of course at the end of the race we will give you some feedback on that, as we see Jamal Badou just run wide a little. Now probably be a track limits warning for him, just perhaps getting a bit impatient behind Ryan Quinn. Perhaps he feels he's quicker but just doesn't have the pace in every area. Just a bit slippery on exit. I think that Lexus has some slightly better traction out the corners. Perhaps he's looked after his tyres a little bit better. The Aston is quite a capable car in the wet. It's very neutral. The Lexus can be a bit tail happy, but the Aston is a much more neutral car. It's a good basis to start with if you're ever new to ACC. It's what I recommend. Very neutral car. And speaking of Astons, here's AJ in the pits. So he bailed out of that battle with Charlie Martin. She is still carrying round, as we see Svensson as well in the pits, as well as Kevin Manning. So drivers exactly halfway through the race, they have stuck to their optimum strategy. As we are now back out with Virak in the front. Yet to pit, as our announcer just says we're halfway through. So the top 3 yet to pit. In fact, top 6 yet to pit. Top 6 are yet to pit. In fact, Omar is also yet to pit, I believe. We will find out. So this leaderboard you're currently looking at is not truly representative of the standings. But I can tell you who would be very happy with this. Charlie Martin. I reckon she is going to be very happy with how her race has gone so far. Starting towards the back of the grid, qualifying not the best, but currently sitting pretty in 6th for her pit stop. If you were to tell her that she was going to be in 6th place, I think she'd have bit your arm off. As we see, Khalil come into the pits. He's perhaps thinking his tyres are done for. Come in while there's not too much going on around him. Perhaps get the undercut on Chris ahead of him. Here we see Virak coming onto the main straight. He will most likely be coming into the pits very shortly. Oliver, not too far behind. He has dropped behind Virak a little bit, but Sandberg's hot on Olivier's tail. He's got pink gloves as well. What a man. It takes a man to wear pink. That's what they say, isn't it? Those gloves are terrific, sorry. Yes, not too far behind Oliver. Making his way through. And is that... No, that Bentley just happens to look like Chris Corbin's BMW. In fact, that is not Chris Corbin behind him. That is Damien Yearwood after his pit stop. He was the first to pit, I believe, so he'll be waiting to see where he comes out once everyone else has. Here we see Khalil Ballou just leaving the pits. It's a fairly lengthy pit stop, as I've mentioned before. You lose quite a chunk of time, but he has come back out in 9th place. As we see Oliver, they are the top 4 just coming round the last corner, seeing who, if any, will dive into the pits. Fire, it continues. Oliver dives into the pits. Sandberg stays out. This will be interesting to see where they come out once Sandberg has served his pit stop. So Oliver pitting for fresh rubber. Of course, no fuel to worry about, but as Sandberg carries on, he must be feeling good. His pace is very, very good. He is the quickest person on the track right now, so he'll be looking to capitalise as much as he can. Only 7 seconds behind Virak. It'll be interesting to see if he matches Virak, or if he thinks if he's catching him enough to stay out that little bit longer and try and overcut him. No, just approaching a back marker of, I believe that is H.A. Jones. And it'll be interesting to see if he plays his part in the blue flags and lets him by. And getting a little squirrely on exit there. Got just enough. Olivier still in the pits. In fact, he's just leaving. So it'll be interesting to see. He's come out behind Chris Corbin. So Chris Corbin not too far behind the main pack. They have first and second, just rounding the corner after the main straight. Chris just entering the main straight. So if he's had a good couple of laps, he may have possibly gained on Oliver. In fact, Charlie Martin got up to 4th now. Oliver coming out behind her in 5th place out of the pit lane. Making her way onto the main straight. So she is well in the lead in the bronze category. So we now back on board with Oliver. And Omar Badou as well in the pit lane, as well as Ryan Quinn and Jamal Badou. So they are 6th, 7th and 8th. This will be very interesting to see in what order they come out. They'll be wanting to turn the engine on as quickly as possible, floor it and be away. Now with Axel Svensson, after he's had company for the most majority of this race so far, he has found himself alone, relatively speaking. The back marker of Derek Rudder there, who also served his pit stop, it seems. Unless he did have an incident that went unseen by the cameras. So Svensson was in 6th, Rudder in 17th. Khalil Boudou, in his Black Falcon liveried Mercedes, he did pit a couple of laps earlier. He was in the top 5. So once Charlie and Chris have pitted as well, it'll be interesting to see in what order they come out in. As we speak of the devil, Charlie has gone into the pits. Now we're back on board with AJ. So it's come out AJ, Yearwood and the 2 Badous. So Yearwood has split them. It must have been quite a lengthy pit stop for Jamal Badou, for Damien to manage to split them. So back on board with Byron as he comes through. Just see how slippery it is out there. There is no hint of a dry line. It is absolutely chucking it down. Just a bit indecisive on gears there. Perhaps one just offers a little bit more rotation than the other. And just dispatching the Aston Martin there. We'll say the Aston led him through, but I think he actually ran wide. But shush, we won't tell anyone. So they come through turn 1 and 2, the S's. Still yet to pit as well. Top 3, Vierik, Sandberg and Corbin, all yet to pit. Sandberg not far behind. Corbin is most likely just passing the pit box. We'll see if he goes in. In fact, he is. There he is. He is in the pits, so he will most likely come out behind Oliver and Svensson. But will Badou and Martin be able to jump him? Making his way down. And here is Oliver. He will go back into 3rd place. And in front of him is another back marker. Be interesting to see just who it is. That looked like the BMW of Capelli. The Salmon will be a home in this weather. Yes, indeed it is. So, coming down the home straight. Blue flags waving. We'll see if he moves out of the way before the first turn. I expect not. So, yep, he has passed Corbin, who is still in the pits. Oh, he does let him through. That's very sporting. Hi, Capelli. Olivier can continue his chase of Sandberg. Look now at Axel Svensson coming out in front of Chris Corbin, only just. That would have been very, very tight. A couple seconds later, perhaps there was every opportunity there for them to just come out next to each other. That would have been great to see. But Chris Corbin now, he's going to have his head down. He's going to be trying to make sure Svensson does not gap him. He'll have fresher rubber, of course. Interesting to see how he gets on the last 20 minutes of the race. So we have Khalil Boudou in his anime car. Again, why you would have anime as a livery, Black Falcon. So as we just see the Porsche of Derek Rudder, just exploring track limits there, to put it nicely. Of course, the Porsche, a very tricky car to drive. Engine all the way over hanging over the rear wheels. It's a very rear biased car, very rotating. Get all your braking done in a straight line. Very difficult to trail brake in. So in wet conditions, when trail braking does often come out on top, it might just prove unfavoursome. Sounds great though, I'll give him that. Oh, here they are, the leaders in the pits. Wilhelm and Sandberg sitting pretty. It'll be interesting to see the gap between them when they come out. Oh, here goes Weirich, he is away. As a BMW goes past, I think of Gonzalez, but Weirich is away, quickly followed by Sandberg. There is only a couple of seconds between them. This is going to be a very interesting race to finish, ladies and gentlemen. As Oliver's also not far behind, he's just coming up to turn 1. And he must have had absolute flyer after his early pit stop. Yeah, both in the same frame there for a split second. And then again, Olivier, so they're all about the same distance apart, judging by the framing there of the camera. 1, 2. As he hits the apex, should it see Olivier? There he is, comes into shot. So yes, this will be a very interesting finish. First and second will have fresher rubber, of course. But if Olivier thinks he's got the pace, he'll definitely give it a go. He's a racing driver at heart. So as we take a quick look at the leaderboard, see the gaps between them. So Sandberg 5 seconds off, and then again, yeah, 5.4 seconds off for Olivier. So evenly spread. This will be a very entertaining finish, I hope anyway. Let's hope for no major dramas as well. Let's hope it's all a clean race to the end. Now, I would love to know what the inspiration is between an anime livery, or behind an anime livery, I should say. Because in the racing world, if you were to do this 10, 20 years ago, put a cartoon on a car, or so maybe 20, 30 years ago, everyone would laugh at you. But there's something about it that just looks quite good. I don't know what it is. But I dare say the older generations would disagree with me there. That's not, doesn't belong on a car. But I can think of worse anime characters to put on. But anyway, here is Khalil. He's catching, I believe, the Lamborghini of Hunt, who went horribly wide there. He has binned it entirely. Has he hit the wall? Has he managed to keep out the wall? He has. That is a spot of luck. But that was a huge spin for Ryan Hunt. I think he's just stalled it. Has he managed to get it going? He has. That must have been a very hair-raising moment. Just make sure you're on the rejoin. He's okay. He does. Jeez, that would have been scary. So I dare say, just on the entry to the second to last turn, just perhaps a bit heavy on the brakes, perhaps by turning it in a bit too much. Light went rear, just rotated on him, and then just couldn't quite hold it through the corner and just ran off wide. Luckily, Paul Ricard has plenty of runoff area, so there wasn't too much drama there. Now going back through the field, Chris Corbin in 5th place. He's managed to just catch Svensson ever so slightly. The battle for 4th place is going to heat up as well. So I imagine he is just outside of the toe, being that far behind. Have to take the opportunity just to cool their tyres. They're staying off the main racing line. Just definitely trying to cool the cars down there, making the most of the open air. Just swing it in, dab of the brake, down a gear, down 2 gears, running a little bit wide, tries to keep it in. Definitely pushing, you can tell he's pushing. The body language of the car matches that as well. Here's the Boatley at home in these conditions. You would probably see that in the British Channel. You would not be surprised. But here it is invading France. So the rain is still coming down nice and hard as we enter towards the last 15 minutes of this race. It has been an absolute pleasure to watch so far. In these closing moments, I dare say, it is going to get closer. They're closer between the top 5, as well as throughout the rest of the field. Right on board with Corbin in his BMW. Hitting the apex perfectly there on the first and second turn, using all the track on the exit. Let's see if we can just stay on board with Chris for a lap and see how he does. So hold on the anchors into turn 3 in another chicane. Just perhaps a little bit hot on entry. Doesn't cost him too much. Plenty of curb. Tight hairpin. And again, plenty of curb. Starting to run it out. Again, all about the exit. Flat this left, just to take it correctly. Perhaps just a hesitant lift there as he felt it go sideways. And now all the way up. A long back straight. Interesting to see how the back marker affects them. Perhaps Corbin will just catch Svensson a little. If they catch him through the tricky, tight final sector, it might prove costly for Svensson. Now down 2 gears, clatters the curb on the inside, gets the exit a lot better there, a lot better, doesn't run wide. Hard on the brakes, trickiest corner on the circuit. They run out wide, then try and come back in nice and narrow, then run it out on the exit, squeeze on the power, hold the slide. Is that the salmon car of Capelli just moving out the way for Svensson? Corbin squeezing on the power. Not too many dramas this lap. This has been a good lap. Let's see, Capelli dives out the way. What a very sporting move there. Saw him coming and moved out the way. Well done, Simon Capelli. Didn't cost Corbin either. And that was a lap on board with Chris Corbin. A good lap that. I think Svensson matched it though as well. So now back with Oscar Sandberg, who seems to have just dropped off from Weirich, just ever so slightly. He has 6.3 seconds, so perhaps either just a small mistake has meant that he can't quite catch him. Olivier has also managed to fall behind slightly from Sandberg. Maybe Olivier's slight earlier pit stop has meant he doesn't quite have the tyre life that Sandberg does. It's just falling back a little bit. So there are yellow flags waved somewhere in the track. But they are now gone. It seems we are catching the back marker of, I assume, Gonzalez. In fact, it is Jeremy Gonzalez. Again, not a good place you want to catch a back marker through here, but Jeremy's had a bit of a, not the best of races. He got caught up in the melee at the start and dropped down to the back, and drops even further down. I think he took an early pit stop, fixed some damage. And now we ride with him now, as Olivier just slowly starts to reel him in a bit more. He will most likely move out the way going into turn 1. Or if he runs wide there, he will do it there. Nicely done. Again, no time lost for Olivier. We see Svensson. Now, I believe Corbin is still with him, only 1.8 seconds behind. So this is firmly a battle for 4th place. Svensson will have to pull something miraculously out the bag to try and drop 20 seconds on Olivier. This is the battle for 4th place. Corbin pitted later, he will have the fresher tyres. They cross the line. Going down into turn 1. The gap staying largely the same, not too much being made by either party. Just a bit of to and froing across the lap where cars are better in different places. One thing that has become clear over the course of this race is that Bentley not necessarily the quickest in a straight line. So if the BMW manages to get in the tow, there is every possibility he could make gains down the straight. But in my experience, Bentley is a lot better on the brakes. So it does level itself out throughout the lap. And that Bentley, while it looks big, while it looks like the engine is 4 miles out in front of it, it is basically mid-engine. That engine is right next to the driver's feet. There is perfect weight distribution in that car as they make their way in to the end of the straight. So we now ride on board with Khalil Padu. Well, not on board, I should say, from the exterior of the car. Very quiet second half of the race. Khalil, not too much going on. He's just put his head down. He's got on with it. Just trying to catch Chris Corbin as much as he could. Now Charlie Martin, she's managed to retain 7th. Before all the pit stops happened, she was in 9th place, so she's clearly had a good run. Just four-wheel sliding the car through that turn there. Here is AJ in 8th place, who has Derek Rudder for company, as well as might be Ryan Hunt. Could be a good battle for 15th place there. Ryan runs very wide in the background. AJ looks to be on his own in terms of position. Indeed he is. Here's Damien Yearwood, the Bentley. A good 10 seconds behind, I would say. And then Jamal, not too far behind either. The Aston making his way through, running very wide there. No regard for track limits. Stewards, watch out for him. Ryan, not too far behind either. Again, the drivers all just nicely spread out, it seems, as we have entered the last 10 minutes of the race. Here's Jelani Patterson. So this could be an interesting finish, trying to get to 11th place. Whether he is catching, we will find out. Very squirrely there, that Hurricane, proving it is still a handful. Good amount of dirt on the car there as well. Making his way through the final sector. This is where the Hurricane will shine, through all these long, fast corners, mid-engine, perfect weight over the back of the car means you can get on the power nice and early and maintain the power through the corner. But the Lexus will just be slightly better on the brakes and maybe just slightly more power as well. Listen to it sing down the straight. If you ever get the chance to listen to one of these cars in person, it is spectacular. The V10s of the Lamborghinis and the Audis is gorgeous. Oh, that was a hairy moment there. This man clearly has entered a drift competition, not a GT3 race. He manages to clip both curbs there. Beautifully done. Manages to regain his composure. Yeah, this Hurricane just proving a bit of a handful to drive in these conditions. Managing to keep the front in there. Not getting away from him too drastically. Yep, flat through the left as well. Now, Jeremy Gonzalez back on board with the BMW. Yeah, quite a bit behind Patterson. So this is just going to be a consolation couple of laps. Just try and consolidate what you have. Simon Capelli, again, only just crossing the line, so quite a bit further back in the Salmon car. Derek Rudder now, 15th, just running a little bit wide, but he just perhaps got spooked by Omar there. His foul was for position as well. So Omar has managed to get ahead of Derek Rudder. This is, and I can see behind, it looked like Ryan Hunt was not too far behind either. There he is. So this will be a very interesting finish for 15th place. They're fighting for all the points they can get. Only 6 minutes left of this race. 6 minutes, 16 seconds, we're going to be precise. You see Derek run wide in front. He's done that a couple of times this race so far. In fact, it doesn't look like it has hampered him though, so he hasn't gained any time. You can see Brian on the wheel. He is on a controller, it is worth noting. So all of these on-off movements he's doing on a controller. That isn't his normal driving style, I can guarantee. But you can just perhaps sense it's getting a bit frantic. So he would not have wanted a wet race. When he found out it was a wet race, you can guarantee he was feeling a bit down about that. Now, back up to 5th with Chris Corbin. He still hasn't managed to overturn Svensson, who in fact has just gapped him slightly. Yeah, he's lost about 0.7 of a second since we last checked. As they go through the S's. Just coming up on the last 5 minutes of the race. 2 or 3 laps left. We will know when Virat crosses the line. So we're now on board. Ryan Quinn in his Lexus seems to be on his own largely. Perhaps, of course, you never know. He might be able to nab a top 10 if one of the trio, that is Jones, Ewart and Badou, just drop it slightly. Addison in 12th. Just following, and there's Byrick just coming in on the final sector. He hasn't put a foot wrong this race. He's led from the outset. He's led the entire race so far, and he wants to keep it that way as well for the last couple of minutes. He's had a very clean race. You can tell he's going to be very happy. Ooh, a little bit sideways as well, just a slight mid-corner correction. So coming across the line, 4 minutes and 10 seconds left. With 2 minute lap times, there is going to be 3 more laps of this race unless he slows it down. Sandberg currently setting 2:01s, so he is a second a lap behind. So perhaps he's just dropped off the pace, perhaps he's just consolidating what he has. Oliver as well, 2:01, so very similar lap times. These drivers all on the ball. Svensson, 2:02s. Just trying to maintain the gap to Chris Corbin. He doesn't want to give him any sense of hope. They cross the line as well. Still could be a very interesting finish. One of the closer battles on the circuit currently for position. I think in that BMW, Chris will be quietly happy with that. As we see now, Khalil Badou coming into turn 1. Number 6 Black Falcon car. Now poor Charlie Martin, not too far behind. Just coming up on some traffic. And she's going to be very happy with how her race has gone. Hard on the anchors. Try and clip both curbs. Perfectly done. Just catching up on the Salmon Capelli. It's not Simon, it's now Salmon Capelli. Running a little bit wide there. Perhaps the front's just suffering a little bit. Now, AJ Jones in the Aston Martin. Nice and steady through there. No real dramas. No corrections that of note. Keeping it nice and planted. Flat through the left. A nice run up along the straight. Wipers still going haywire. Rain coming down. Listen to the Aston Martin V8 roar down the straight. Gear nicely done. Not using too much track limits there. Now look behind, Damien Ewart. It's squirrely on entrance there, and on exit as well. Just a little hint of the back wanting to rotate as Ryan continues to ignore track limits. He is giving it his all. But this is for position, so anything goes apart from contact, as he just shoves it up the inside. Derek just running wide there. He might be unhappy with himself there. See how they get in. Manages to collect it, keeps it steady. on the power. Oh, you can tell he's just pushing, running a little wide there. He is giving it everything he's got. Tyres might just be suffering as well. But we're in the last 30 seconds of the race now. We jump back to Wilhelm Weyrich. Just coming round the last corner of what will be his penultimate lap, unless he's judged it well. There's the Lexus there, and also Ryan Quinn. So, there will be one more lap.
Give it a final push.
So, if anyone wants to make a move, if anyone wants to just send it, now's the time to do it. So, just one last lap for Wilhelm. No mistakes. He hasn't made any so far. You see Sandberg not too far behind, going through turn 1. Feeding on the power. Doesn't want to make any mistakes. Perhaps he'll be hoping that Weyrich will make one. Oh, it's the Lambo in front. Oh, he's got very sideways. He's speared off towards the left. He's managed to hold it though. Delaney Patterson, well held, sir. Well held. That Lambo is a handful. As here is the other Lambo. We've got Oliver. Not too far behind. He will be, again, hoping for a mistake perhaps. Weyrich just sitting pretty behind the Lexus. He's got no reason to overtake. But if Quinn doesn't want to do an extra lap, maybe he'll drop behind him. So I get the feeling Weyrich doesn't want to ruin his own race or Ryan's. He has no reason to get past in the final sector now. In fact, here we go. Ryan just letting him through. As we come towards the very final stages of this race, it has been a pleasure commentating for you. We will catch up with the top 3 after the race, so stick around for that and ask them a couple of questions, see how they got on as Weyrich goes through the final corner at Paul Ricard. Squeezes on the power, no dramas. And Wilhelm Weyrich comes across the line to win round 3 of the Carib Sim Motorsport ACC Championship. Well done, Wilhelm. Oscar Sandberg crosses the line in 2nd place. He had a storming race. He had a bit of a mess up at the start to bring it back. Oliver, 3rd place. Nice, consistent driving there. We'll hear from the top 3 after the race as we switch back to Svensson. He has managed to fend off Chris Corbin. For now, Corbin has managed to close up massively, but I don't think he's close enough to go for it in the final corner. In fact, he's very late on the brakes there. He does give it a go, but that will mean that Svensson manages to hold on to 4th place. Well done, Svensson. Corbin very close behind in 5th place. That was an excellent battle throughout the race. Khalil Badou been on his own largely for the second half of this race. But that is just a mark of a consistent driver. Doesn't need anyone else to gauge it from. He just has himself in the car, and he has done very well there. Well done, Khalil Badou. Jumping back to Charlie Martin, just going through the final corner. She has had a remarkable race. She'll be very happy with where she has come from to finish in 7th place. That is a job well done, Charlie. Although, AJ not too far behind. Making his way across. Solid 8th place for AJ. And had a good battle with a couple of the other competitors. Damien Yearwood also crossing the line in his Bentley. 9th place is not too bad at all. Now Jamal just running wide on the final corner, but again, a good race from Jamal in his Aston Martin. Derek Rudder in front of him. Ryan Quinn also crossing the line in 11th place. In fact, coming into the pits because, of course, he did finish behind Weyrich. So there you go. Those are the final standings for ACC Sim. Sorry, let's try that again. Caribbean Motorsport ACC Championship Round 3 at Paul Ricard. There you have it, a very delectable race. That was a lot of fun to watch. I hope you had fun at home watching as well. As the drivers put into the pits. See Olivier. Top 3, I think, can be happy with themselves. Sandberg, especially so, I believe. Svensson making his way through. So it's business as usual out front. Sandberg and Vierik, they were the top 2 in the championship heading into this round. They will have closed the gap on each other slightly, with Vierik finishing ahead of Sandberg. Oliver will started in 7th. He will jump up a few places over Jamal Badou, I should say, who did finish down in 9th, so he will jump a few places, I'm sure. And then Chris Corbin, who came into this round in 3rd place, finishing in 5th, is most likely to hold position. Actually, no, that is incorrect. That was a very important finish for Svensson. They both came into the round on 42 points. And Svensson finishing in front has meant that he has managed to extend a small lead over Corbin. And those would be the updates for the top 5. So, as the final car pulls into the pits, there will be a small little break for them to catch their breath. And then we will hear from them all very soon.
I just got on the curb and slid, and the second time, I don't know what happened. Sorry about that.
Oh yeah, join that. Lovely stuff. Well done, everyone. That was a good race to watch. I'll start by beginning with that. That was a cracking race to watch. The start was particularly interesting. It's a shame some of you lost out. But on that note, I'll start with Oscar Sandberg. Oscar, how would you sum that up?
Hello, guys.
Good question. You always find the best questions to me, or what? No. Yeah. What should I say? I had a go on Wilhelm, you can say, but since we theoretically are a teammate, I wanted to take it easy past him, and of course, Oliveira with the Lambo was faster on the straight than I thought, and he came and came on the inside, and he pushed me out in that corner, and in the next one, you can say, and little, what should I say, a little bump and go, but he then went a little out in the next one, and I thought I maybe could get the gap, but I think it was myself or a race incident. I slipped, we hit each other, and I spun, and somehow I had a little Twinkie with my steering wheel, so I spun theoretically almost again. But yeah, in the middle of the track, and that was not very, very clever. But yeah, that happened.
You must be very happy with your comeback, though.
Yes, of course. The end results say itself. Of course, as a P2 in the end, just under 10 seconds behind Wilhelm. After that, I'm very happy with. I know that Wilhelm have extremely good pace in the dry, but it's very, very good in consistent in the rain, and also I think he have to have taken the best lap of the race. So he, of course, he's very strong at the moment. But I think what should I say? The comeback was good, but it's, you know how it is as race drivers always say, it could have been better.
Yes, first place would always have been better. Thank you, Oscar. So, Wilhelm, first place, led from the start of the race, obviously very happy.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was not that hard as we normally drive when Oscar is behind me. But this depends on his spin during the race earlier, obviously, otherwise he would have been in my back. I could control the pace, I could save my tires. Maybe when you go through the times, you see sometimes I start to push again until the tires start to get too much heat in it, and then I lift a bit off again to control just my tire wear. Yeah, I watched it already because I need every point what I can get at the moment. Obviously, the pole gives me one extra point, and the fastest lap time with a 2:05 gives me another point as well because I need to catch up with Oscar again, obviously, after the last two races. But in general, very happy, yeah, obviously, to win this race. I'm thankful for everyone in T1 because I saw cars appearing in the back and I was thinking like, oh, not like the two races before. And yeah, luckily Oscar was a teammate as he always is and didn't like bomb me into the first corner. So overall, I'm very happy with the other teammates as well. And in general, thank you to everyone for that good race, respecting blue flags. I think that was an awesome job of everyone.
Oh, perfect. All a team player. But moving forward, of course, while you are teammates, there will come a point where it is personal, where you want to come over one over each other.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe when you watch the replays of Oscar and me driving in the last serious season and the last different championship as well, you see that we can both ride bumper to bumper over 60 minutes without even touching each other. And in the very end, the car with the better pace wins. I think we are quite equal in general in the cars when it comes to a fight. And obviously I'm looking forward, but for the Lambos as well and the other drivers, I think German Budo is quite strong in the Mercedes as well. So hopefully for the next race, which is a 3-hour race, it's not only about the fastest pace, yeah, it's more about smartness and to be smart in the race, yeah.
No, 100%. It will come down to consistency at Bathurst. That will be something to watch out for. Maybe a few surprises as well with those tight walls. And then coming into third place, Dominic Oliver. Dominic, are you happy with that?
Yeah, very happy with it. Considering you just learned the track 2-3 days ago and have no idea what to do setup wise, no practice in the rain. Pretty much a dry setup. Tires cold, brakes cold, everything not good. Very happy with that. You know, think if I had done my due diligence and practiced in the wet and tried to understand how the setup is supposed to go for the wet, probably would have gave these guys a run. I was looking forward for it to be dry, but it is what it is. Happy with third.
Yeah, of course, the French do throw up some unpredictable weather, but you weren't exactly far away. So your wet weather antics often, well, obviously quite good.
Yeah, I think I was able to, adapt pretty quickly to the changing conditions. I certainly had the pace to fight, but the setup wouldn't allow me to really attack every time I would push, and I would then overheat the tires, and pressures were way too low, and brakes were cold most of the time. So I really had to try and manage that all race. So it was a losing battle. Oscar and I had a nice little battle at the start. Him and Will, kind of fought each other, which was good for me. So I got to be inside of him, but it was so wet around, probably the toughest corner of the track. So I ended up going a little wide, almost touching him, pushed him a little bit, and then the next one he dive bombed the next one and hit me and spun, which was unlucky. But either way, I wouldn't have had the car under me to fight them.
Well, there's always next time, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys. Thank you. Well done to everyone involved. That was a thoroughly enjoyable race to watch. I hope you've all enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed racing. I hope you've enjoyed it if you've been watching. And we will see you all for round 4 next time. Thank you very much.